good morning. Are you hearing me?
Good morning, Phyllis.
Yes,
welcome.
yes. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar out of the Bush School acting against FGM in Liberia and beyond. I'm very happy.
Yes.
Of No Peace Without Justice to open this 2-hour event with a number of participants, a very important one, with very important news from Liberia after the conference, the local conference on FGM that took place in these days, and that for sure our Liberian friend will inform us in detail, but I think there will be adopted important, at least from the press, important decision, but without any other speeches from my side, I would like to start this event giving the floor to Giulia Scavoni, Gender and Human Rights Program Advisor, No Peace Without Justice, for the opening remark and the introduction to the purposes of this event. Please, Giulia.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you, everybody, for being here to celebrate with us the International Day of Zero Tolerance for FGM. On this occasion, I believe that besides celebrating the progresses that we have reached, we should also draw attention on what has not been done yet and what is also most difficult to deal with. And also we should talk about why there are still contexts and environments which have not benefited from so many progresses in the eradication of FGM, and also what should be done. We know that FGM usually does not come alone, and where it prevails, also other forms of violence against women and children prevail. And we all agree that if FGM is still entrenched in culture, women and girls cannot reach their full potential, and the country will never reach its full potential, and also will never reach a sustainable development. Today we will discuss about FGM in Liberia and also in Sierra Leone, 2 of the 3 West African countries where FGM is not yet criminalized, despite both countries have ratified regional and international human rights instruments condemning the practice as a human rights violation, including the Maputo Protocol. As Gianfranco mentioned this morning, we have read a very good news about the temporarily suspended, the traditional leaders have accepted to temporarily suspend all Sunday practices for a period of 3 years. But I think that we all agree that we still need a law to avoid that such progresses are temporary. The role of the law is not just to prosecute, but also to protect girls who refuse the practice, and also to legitimize those who work on the ground, and also to change the perception of FGM, which is a practice that harms women and certainly does not define them. Today we will also have the opportunity to watch the documentary Out of the Bush by Emanuela Zuccalà, an Italian journalist who many times has used her work to give voice to human rights defenders and anti-FGM activists. This document shows the difficult and violent context which surrounds FGM in Liberia. And we will also have the opportunity to listen to the experience of activists who have the courage to speak up, often despite a very hostile environment. We will also take stock of the situation in Europe with the presentation of the report FGM and the Law in Europe, presented by Dr. Wilson of the organization 28 to Maine. And last but not least, we really appreciate the presence of the representatives of the European Union and its institution, the Parliament and the Commission. Their presence clearly demonstrates both their personal and institutional engagement. We think that it is very important that the European Union and its member states continue to put pressure on countries, also through diplomacy, despite all possible political and cultural obstacles. Because political pressure to criminalize FGM should be coupled with the support, including financial, to organizations and activists and to human rights defenders, were often threatened and harmed because of their work, but it's also needed to support politicians, members of parliament or of government, which are often left alone in their fight. So I don't want to take up too much time, and I would like to thank you. And I now give back the floor to Gianfranco and Emanuela Zuccalà. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you for this introduction, and that gives to you the picture of this very important event with many speakers announced. That's why I will give the floor immediately to Emanuela Zuccalà, filmmaker, for the presentation of this documentary, The Bush School, which was the origin of the initiative you have taken for celebrating the International Day Against FGM, to present and to speak around this documentary. Please, Emanuela.
Thank you very much. I want first of all to thank No Peace Without Justice for organizing this important conference and for supporting always my work. And I want to thank all the speakers who are here today, and also all the audience. I will be very short because I really would love you to watch the movie before we start any conversation. But anyway, as a journalist and as a filmmaker and also a women's rights activist, I've been investigating and reporting for many years about the issue of female genital mutilations. I worked in many African countries and in Europe as well, among the African migrant communities. But at a certain point, I knew that was a very important chapter that was missing, the chapter about the African countries where FGM is still legal, because down there the situation is completely different from the other countries. So I had the opportunity to work in Liberia, and I'm very happy to see here Mrs. Phyllis Kimba, because when I was in Liberia, she couldn't meet me. I tried to meet her, but she was in a particular moment, and so I'm very happy to meet you here because I've read your story and your engagement against female genital mutilation. And so just a few words about the situation in Liberia that I'm sure the activists from Liberia will illustrate much better than me. But anyway, in Liberia, FGM is not only legal, but is strictly related to a powerful secret society that's called Sande. And female genital mutilation, so literally the cutting of the clitoris, is the initiation right, the right of access to this secret society that has a very high prestige inside the rural communities. So female genital mutilation is very spread out, and the bush schools, so these schools literally in the forest run by the secret society, receive regular licenses from the government. So it's a very serious situation. It's a situation in which no government so far has succeeded in passing a law criminalizing female genital mutilation. It's very important, this news that we all read in these days, that there was a ban for female genital mutilation for the next 3 years. But as Julia said very well, without a law, it's very difficult to fight FGM, and it's very difficult to support the activists against FGM. In this movie that we're going to watch, in my movie, you will listen to 3 women's rights activists. 2 of them asked me to cover their identity, their name and their faces, because they literally risk their lives. And I'm sure that Mrs. Phyllis Kimba know very well the difficult situation in which the human rights, the women's rights activists in Liberia live. So with this movie, I mainly wanted to give voice to the activists in Liberia, to push a sort of international support for them, because they are very brave, they are very engaged, but they, as you will listen, as you will watch, they feel a bit abandoned by by the big NGOs, by the government, by the international community. So this is the main purpose of my movie, to try to push a support for the Liberian activists. Before watching the movie, we have the pleasure and I have the honor to have a short video contribution from Emma Bonino. She's a senator in Italy, and she's the founder of No Peace Without Justice, and she's been one of the first political personalities in Europe to push an international attention on the issue of female genital mutilation. So she wanted to comment very shortly my movie, and I have the pleasure to launch this contribution by Senator Emma Bonino. Please, Stefano.
Il cortometraggio La scuola nella foresta è un cortometraggio molto interessante perché si riferisce a un paese, la Liberia, dove le mutilazioni genitali femminili sono ancora legali e quindi molto molto praticate. Peraltro legati a tutta una procedura di società segreta che si chiama Sande, che quindi è molto difficile da sradicare anche culturalmente parlando, ma comunque la legge ancora le consente. Lo stesso vale per la Sierra Leone, che hanno queste comunità molto permeabili tra la Liberia e Sierra Leone. In ogni caso credo sia un cortometraggio di Emanuela Zuccala che è molto importante perché ci dà la consapevolezza di un rito crudele che consiste nel taglio dei genitali femminili, ancora praticato in molti paesi, in altri con l'aiuto delle attiviste siamo riusciti perlomeno a metterle fuori legge, in Liberia e Sierra Leone non ancora, e io mi auguro che anche i nostri diplomatici o i rapporti che teniamo con questi due paesi abbiano nel paniere dei rapporti che teniamo anche un passo avanti sulle mutilazioni genitali, anzi contro le mutilazioni genitali femminili.
So I know that I have the task to launch the documentary. Just one technical thing for the audience who is watching this panel, this webinar, not live, but the registration. So afterwards, for copyright reasons, you will not see the movie, you will not watch the movie, but only the trailer. So, but we all now live are watching the movie. So the Bush School, thank you very much.
It was at the point of giving birth. I heard them saying, "Oh, she's a sinner. She's not being circumcised." They told me that was more than a group of 30 women.
When they catch you, they will take you to the sandy bush and have you circumcised by force as a way of punishment.
And the remaining women are sinking. They are sinking so loud. And the woman is cutting me.
By tradition, I'm supposed to be taking over from my grandmother as a zoo. You're in charge of the children. You perform the mutilation. But the point is, who's gonna talk about this? Because you take an oath, and they tell you when you talk about it, you will die.
The Ministry of Internal Affairs have the oversight responsibility of all secret societies in this country. These are bush schools.
Children are dying. because of the practice. Some of them die, they bleed to death.
Emanuela, thank you very much for this impressive movie, and this is our way to celebrate and to denounce once again the practice of genital mutilation. We have the chance to having some activists from Liberia and from Sierra Leone. So at least if you, Emanuela, want to add something, I will give the floor to Phyllis Nguma Kimba, Liberian human rights activist and executive director of the National Association on Traditional Practice Affecting the Health of Women and Children. Please, Phyllis, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'm highly impressed. I want to tell the journalists who came out with this video, very thank you. And that video was taken to her personal something. The security risk that she went through to even develop that video is overwhelming. So I thank you very much, and thank you, the organizers of this platform, because you know. But first of all, we are very glad to be part of it. In commemorating this FGM Day, February 6th, Zero Tolerance to FGM. We are very glad to be part of it. Now, the video shows exactly what is happening in Liberia. It is what is happening in Liberia. I can remember years back when we started it, we went through beatings. My horse was going down. But anyway, it's not compared to what the young people are going through today. But I can tell you thank you, because this is a risky job. That you must have passion for it. You must want to save the lives of the generation, especially girls and young women, to go through this, because I'm a victim, I'm a survivor. I went through it. I have those health effects, psychological effects, which made me to be a pioneer to eliminate female genital mutilation in Liberia and the world all over. No matter whether I have looked at any girl or woman in the eye, whether they are all over the world, if I have not seen them, but they are still women, and they are going through the same trauma that I'm going through. So we will fight. Thank you very much for your support. I know we rely on you, the partners, to help us.
Thank you.
Our work, NAPA work, thank you. When we started our work, we are. Sorry. We have a small breakdown. Okay, when NAPA started, this is how we do it. This is how we do our work. We do training. We do a lot of advocacy. We do education and awareness. We go through life skills training for traditional zones, because you will have, if you want to take the practice of FGM from them, if you want to remove the knife from them, whatever instrument they are using, you have to replace it with something. And we do a lot of research while we are going, because, I am my staff, especially I'm a professional nurse, I'm a sociologist, I'm a trained teacher from the University of Liberia. Now you have to do a lot of research in the community, where you look at the people's thoughts about this whole practice of FGM. You have to look at the attitude. What is it? You have to go through the knowledge. Those things you have to learn before you go to work with them. But now, Napa has fairly keen. Because you can see a lot of women, a lot of young girls are now actively participating. Where when Liberia, FGM practice was a taboo, but we brave that storm. We brave it, regardless of beatings, calling me names, especially Mr. Skimba, Felix Skimba, who was called the dog. As soon as I go into any community, they call me here, the dog is coming again. Especially but now, unfortunately, those women that we are at that time who were talking for them, they didn't even understand. But we are so happy now that they can understand and they know it and they are working along with us. And you can see it from the FGMJ yesterday, February 6th, Monday. I think I sent video. I sent some few photos. You can see what happened. You can see a lot of young girls, lot of even boys. Because one of our research that we did, we said, let us try to even include the women. NAPA should not only be a women-led organization, it should be involved with youth, even the parents. First, some parents, they will even stop their children for attending. So what we want to say, the next step, the challenges we have, we cannot say all, because the video have already said no. So I can only go to the next step. Please increase our support for alternative livelihood, sustaining for these traditional practices, and even the victims, because sometimes some trauma, you go through trauma, you don't have satisfy your marriage home. How will you have that emotional support? We need those training because we are gaining. We are gaining, but we need support. We want to have the safe homes, especially the safe home, where someone, we started it about 2-3 years ago, but now we have no support. We need support. Our partners come to our aid, because sometimes my home was a place for safe home, but now I can't continue, especially during the war. I was hosting a lot of personal costs. I was hosting them during the war, so we need to continue. We need to go on with this advocacy, my people. The awareness, we want to increase it, because now that more women and youth are getting involved. Please, we need assistance.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.
Me to talk. And thank you for understanding my voice.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your intervention. Another Liberian woman, Antik Jallow. It's a woman and children rights advocate and a survivor of MGF. She is based now in Belgium, but she works with the Girls Open Eyes Social Club, a non-governmental, non-profit women local organization launched in December 2012. Please, Antrik, you have the floor.
Good morning, distinguished panelists. I'm Antrik Jallow. I'm a survivor of rape in Liberia. And I want to say thank you to the No Peace Without Justice for the opportunity given me, and also for this so much important initiative that they have taken to fight against FGM in Liberia. From the standpoint of a child that came from two different parents from different culture. My mother was a Christian and my dad is from the Muslim ethnic group who they believe in circumcision. And because of that, my mother being as a teacher, she had to keep me away from them until I could reach the age of where I can protect myself and where I could stand up and say, no, you can't do this to me, or I cannot accept it. But the question is how many of these young girls that their mothers were in the same situation as my mother, where she had a control to protect me, how many of them? They are not many. Our girls in Liberia are vulnerable when it comes to FGM. I live in a society where I see I see abuse, injustice against girls and women as nothing in Liberia. I live in a society where, in a community where there was a sandy bush close to my house, and we were waking towards the loud cry of young children screaming in the middle of the night because they have been caught. And I will cry many days, why? Where is the government? Where is the international community? Who is going to help our children? But today I can say there is hope for Liberian children. Hope has come. And I want to thank the EU and every members here for taking up this initiative. And as a victim of rape, and now I've become an advocate, has become a voice for other rape victims in Liberia and every other kind of violence against our women and children. I'm calling on the EU and every other partners, non-governmental partners, the Human Rights Watch, to take a stand against the government of Liberia, because the EU is giving more support to Liberia. And the only way we can implement some of these things is by holding the government feet to fire. If it costs the EU to give sanction or take harsh decision against the government, that will be the best thing to end the violence against women and to end FGM. But it is really not easy in Liberia. The abuse is too much. What this film has shown is everything that is happening in Liberia. Our children are being forced to be initiated. Just 2 months ago, 2 young boys were forced to a society to be castrated. And the government does nothing about it. At the end of the day, the vice president of Liberia came up and said it is their culture. You have a government where you have the representative, those that are supposed to protect the people are the ones that are the perpetrators of these acts. A 3-year-old child was raped, murdered. There's no justice. An 18-year-old high school girl was killed and murdered by a reverend of a Baptist or Methodist church. And the vice president of Liberia protected this man. Up till now, the mother cannot have justice. A 13-year-old girl, 2 weeks ago, she was raped and murdered to death. There is no justice. And the advocates are vulnerable in Liberia because they have no one to protect them. They cannot speak out because of fear of their life. When you speak out at the end of the day, you will see someone come to your house and murder you. There's so much injustice. There's so much violence in Liberia, especially now under the WIA-led government. Too many murders, too many injustice, too many rapes. And they are not only raping our children, they are also murdering them. They rape them and murder them in order to conceal evidence. We need the help of the international community. Please come to the aid of Liberian girls. I am a victim of rape. I was raped by now present Ukraine consulate in Liberia. When I came out to break the silence, there was no justice. No justice. Instead, the vice president of Liberia protected him. If it was in a normal society, by now he will be asked to step down from his position. But he is still serving as the Consulate General of Ukraine. And I'm calling on the EU to look into this case and see justice be done. Let this man be asked to step aside and let justice take its place. We need justice in order for the victims of rape, of abuse, of these harmful practices and harmful culture to have peace. They must first have justice. And I'm still fighting. I've been fighting 8 years. I'm fighting for myself. I'm fighting for the Liberian children, especially those that have not reached the age of 10. They are already been destroyed. Their life is already been shattered. How long can we live in this? Please, I'm calling on the EU to come to our aid, because the American government is also taking a stand, putting sanctions on the government of Liberia by depriving them of whatever financial support. If the EU can start this and follow the same suit as the American government by sanctioning these government officials, people who are supposed to protect the law. The judiciary system is not working at all. They are playing politics with FGM. And you see more and more children are being vulnerable. They are dying every day, because how can you expect a 3-year-old child, my God, to undergo the pain of being circumcised? You're killing them. You are killing them. And the government thinks it is politics, all about politics, the vote that they need from these people. And you have a sitting Solicitor General of Liberia. He is on record. There is a recording where he asks former ex-rebel general to murder virgins and bring their parts to them. Liberia is a breeding ground for injustice. Our sisters are being killed every day. And we as an advocate, we are so, we watch this happening on a daily basis. We are crying out to the international community. I am broken. I see this video, I'm shedding tears. I feel pain, because it's some of the agony of being a Liberian child growing up. 99% of Liberian women are being abused. Everyone has their story. How long can we live in this shackle of injustice and violence against the women and children of Liberia? I went through it, but I've decided that no, the generation after me will not have to go through what I go through. Be a voice and speak out no matter what. And I'm calling on every one of you. I want to thank the No Peace Without Justice. I am so, so grateful for this. And I hope that the FGM will not only be your initiative, but also to stand up against violence and rape against Liberian women. Our children are being murdered every day. There's no justice. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for this message. I think it's been very, very, extremely clear, and the audience is exactly the good panel to hear your voice. Now I give the floor to another activist from another country, but very similar in terms of tradition to the Liberia, Sierra Leone, and I give the floor to Rujato Nehe Turai, human rights activist and anti-FGM campaigner, and she can also tell us a little bit about her experience as founder of the Amazonian Initiative movement and many other things. Please, Rujato, you have the floor.
I'm afraid she's muted.
I'm muted. I saw her connected, so. You have to unmute to speak.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I am the founder of Amazonian Initiative Movement and the chairperson for Forum Against Harmful Traditional Practices, a coalition of 21 NGOs working to eliminate FGM in Sierra Leone. You know, while I was watching the documentary from our sister country, Liberia, I can see a similar situation here in Sierra Leone. And the name Sunday, for us here in Sierra Leone, it's called between the South and the Eastern Province. And in the North and the West and the entire country, you say Bondo Society. And so we say the Bondo School. You know, we have a similar experience. In Liberia, I see it's the Internal Affairs Ministry. For Sierra Leone, it's the Ministry of Local Government. The Ministry of Local Government, because it deals with traditional leaders, the paramount chiefs, treasury clerks, and court clerks. These are the people who issue permission for the practice to be carried on. And so you find out that each and everybody will give an excuse when carrying sensitization to make sure they stop the practice of FGM. As you say, children are removed from the schools, the normal school system, a modern educational system, into the Bundubush. We have a big example of a video on social media currently from a village called Nomo Farmer in Kenema district. In Kenema district, the entire village of Nomo Farmer, the old school is empty. And the person who went to monitor said in this video that when he asked, the first time he visited, he was told all the children have been taken into the Bundubush. And this means that including the teachers and everybody are in the Bundubush. So you can see that they give premium to these cultural practices than education. And so our campaign is for us to see how we can reduce the number of Bundubushes. In Sierra Leone, in every village, you have a Bundu school, as they call it, a Bundu school, in every village. In the bigger towns, you don't even know the number of Bundu schools that exist. This means that you have a huge number of children that will be caught at any time because you don't even know the numbers. And so, what we are doing is you reduce the number of Bundubush. Wherever you have a bush, we bring communities together. They agree to say, okay, we remove all these bushes and you replace with a school. And then we choose a community just within the section to make sure we have what we call the alternative rite of passage. Remember, when you look at the documentary, there is a traditional leader emphasizing on the culture of Africa, that every country has its own culture. And as victims of the FGM, we know our tradition is good, but we are working very hard to make sure we remove the harmful part of the tradition, which is the cutting and removal of our clitoris. So we want to maintain our Bondo culture, and therefore we introduce what we call the alternative rite of passage, wherein you can have a traditional safe space for women. And in this traditional safe space, we expect educated women and rural women, women of status, to meet in the traditional safe space, deliberate issues of women, and together take a decision to push those in authority to make sure they have laws that can protect women. We have realized that most times we talk in conferences, we are in the rural community, women that make the highest number of population are not present. So if we make the bushes safe, you reduce the number and you have it safe, then we know that we will be able to achieve gender equality and women empowerment. As we say, here in Freetown, as I speak, there is an investigation we are doing of a 10-year-old girl that died in the Bondo school. She was in class 5 and she was removed from the school to the Bondo school. And in the process, she died. The parents were threatened to say they should not report. If they report, because there is already this debate on age of consent, which is to me and us as campaigners, a because politicians fear to lose votes as it do want to take an action to say, okay, of FGM. And this age of consent is just delaying the process. It doesn't stop the practice of FGM. Because we already know in Africa, children don't have a decision over their parents. And even at age 30 or 40, you still stay under the roof of your parents. So bringing an age of consent discussion by our decision makers, by our politicians, is a way of saying we don't want to discuss this. We don't want to have anything to do. And our countries have signed international treaties, so they have a responsibility of fulfilling this international document. And therefore, we have the EU coming up with this. We expect that in Sierra Leone, the EU should begin to work on the issue of female genital mutilation because it's affecting majority of the women. Women are just being silent. But now you have anti-FGM campaigners coming up, bringing up the issues. And I think we have done a good work. Saying what is happening in Liberia, I believe we can have what we call the Mano River Union campaign, because Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone have similarities when it comes to culture and tradition. And so I believe all international organizations working within the Mano River Union should not play into the political hands of the Age of Consent campaign, because it is not helping. And this is not what they are looking for at the international level. For every country, the commitment is elimination. And so as a coalition of NGOs working to end FGM in Sierra Leone, we have been the only coalition, even when we had the recent death of a 21-year-old woman, Masire Se, who died during the process of FGM. No INGO, no government institution have condemned the practice. So you say that anti-FGM campaigners are taking the risk to make sure we make a change to protect women. And all of us as campaigners and anti-FGM campaigners are victims, but we don't take ourselves as victims. We are heroes. Our voices should be heard so that we can save the others and speak for those who are still shy of coming forward to explain what they are facing and what they have gone through. And so this is what we are doing, developing a curriculum for Robondo Bush. Part of it is cutting. So we are saying you have to change this curriculum. You cannot put cutting into a curriculum. This is violating the rights of women and girls. It's violence. And nobody should be saying promoting violence. Delaying the process for an age of consent is promoting FGM. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was very important as intervention, and we brought the spectrum of the problem with the next intervention. Kadi Koita, President La Palabra, good friend of an old friend of No Peace Without Justice, activist against the MGF since many times. Please, Kadi, give your vision of the situation. Thank you. Kadi, you have to unmute. Kadi, you are here? Francesca, do you know if Kadi is connected?
She should be here. I can see her, but she doesn't seem to hear us. Kadi, est-ce que tu peux essayer de parler avec le microphone? Ah, voilà.
Ah, voilà. Please. Kadi.
Maybe Gianfranco, if she cannot unblock
Yes,
herself,
if she cannot,
we can come back to
can
her
go
later
and
on.
maybe take her later. In this case, I have the pleasure to give the floor for a first reaction exactly from the European Union to this repeated call to the Ambassador the ambassador and the head of delegation of the European Union in Liberia, Ambassador Laurent Delahousse. Please, Ambassador, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Gianfranco. Hello, everyone. Just first thing, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. I want to thank you for organizing this event. It's true it comes at a particularly auspicious time with the announcement that was actually not supposed to have been made because the document, the statement of Banga has not been signed yet. It is being signed at the moment, and I spoke with the Minister of Gender this morning. The formal presentation of the document will only happen tomorrow or the day after, and I understand that it was posted on Facebook by the Minister's communication team a little bit faster than it should have. So I'm not entitled to go into much detail. What can we do as diplomats, and what is the EU doing in Liberia? As diplomats, we do three things. We drink champagne, we talk, and we give money. Now, champagne has nothing to do with the issue, so we talk and we give money. What do we say when we talk? I like to say when I talk, I'm a little girl born in Africa. I want a country where there's food on the table, where there's a roof over my head, where there is peace and security so my fathers, my mothers can love me. I want to live in a country where there's education for me, and where I can make my life as good as that of a boy. I want to live in a country where I will not be dragged into the bush, where I will not be mutilated in the deepest of my intimacy, where I will not be deprived of the full potential of my womanhood. And I go on like this. Talk is something we can do, and we insist, to with the traditional leaders, and we did it again last week in Banga at the meeting of traditional leaders and elders on the day of the International Day Against FGM, that traditions can and must evolve. When traditions are wrong, when traditions are illegal, when traditions are harmful, traditions must change. And I think this is something that is beginning to appear in Liberia. The decision of the traditional leaders of last Friday is not the first one. There has been already a ban for 1 year. And the idea during that ban was to do an inventory of the situation. This inventory has now been done. You will see figures when the new statement is released, and there is a better understanding of the situation on the ground. Why should we talk about this? Because I think that full repression of FGM will not be sufficient. Full repression means that the Sunday societies become even more secretive, and that the practice continues in a very hidden way, in a more hidden way than it is even at the moment. Therefore, we feel that it is essential to accompany repression by persuasion. And this is what we are supporting in Liberia, this push to talk with the traditional components of society to make them understand how FGM is harmful for the future of this country, as has been so well said by people before me who know much better these issues than I do as a diplomat who's only here for a few years. We are supporting this stance. We feel that there needs to be some time for success to be reached, while at the same time, we fully acknowledge that every day lost is a broken life for a little girl in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, and in other countries. What I hope is that with this movement forward by the traditional leaders, and remember that 3 years ago, it was impossible to talk FGM with these leaders. It was impossible to address the subject publicly in Liberia because you would immediately have massive pushes against this, and our friends in the activist world have experienced in their bodies the consequences of this. There is progress. It takes time to move ahead, and I think that we are reaching in Liberia a crux where there is movement on the side of the traditional components of society. There is, I think, a genuine will on the part of the authorities to progress. Of course, we are frustrated, and I understand what Antrik was saying, and Antrik, we need to meet, you and me here. I absolutely understand your frustration, and as development partners and friends of Liberia, we also experience frustration in this country as we do in other countries, and we talk with the leaders of this country. There is a lot to be done, but we must continue on that way. That is about the talk. The walk is with money, and the walk is essentially for the EU through the Spotlight program. We are fighting SGBV through the United Nations with European money. We are promoting our own direct action, supporting civil society organizations, and we will definitely continue to do so, because this is one of our very, very strong values. The rights of women, girls, boys, children in Liberia is an essential part of our action in this country. I thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having mentioned this important initiative, the Spotlight initiative, and I'm sure we have the occasion to talk again with Mrs. Adamo. But I think now Kadi Koita is connected, so I mean, she was connected already, but now she can take the floor. Kadi, if you want, you can have the floor, please.
Good morning to everyone. Hello, did you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, but my question is to speak in English. It may be difficult for me.
Speak in French, maybe. Not everybody, but most of people will listen to you.
Thank you. Bonjour à tous. Merci aux organisateurs de m'avoir convié à cette journée. La journée tolérance zéro qui devient amère d'année en année quand je vois le film d'Emmanuel Zika qui est fait au Liberia. Quand j'entends ce qui se passe là-bas, quand j'entends ce qui se passe au Sierra Leone, et aussi dans certains d'autres pays, et aussi dans mon pays, c'est triste de voir que les choses évoluent dans un sens et dans l'autre pas. Je pense que tout le travail qui a été fait, par exemple, moi, ça fait à peu près 40 ans, hein, le Games France fêtera ses 40 ans cette année, que nous luttons contre les mutilations sexuelles féminines en Europe. Et moi, je dirais en Europe et en Afrique, parce qu'on travaille en collectif. Tout le travail qui a été fait ne démérite pas. Au contraire, c'est grâce à ce travail que nous arrivons là aujourd'hui. Notre grand problème, c'est vraiment l'engagement des politiques. L'engagement des politiques reste à voir, doit être plus fort et surtout d'aider les associations de base sur le terrain à vraiment travailler. J'ai entendu parler l'ambassadeur, mais ça c'est super d'avoir des ambassadeurs aussi engagés qui suivent la question et qui essayent de faire le maximum possible. En Afrique aujourd'hui, et même nous en Europe, hein, il faut revenir à la base, parce qu'en ce moment, je suis en train de rencontrer des femmes et je me rends compte qu'en fait, que le tabou n'est pas levé. Je rencontre 3-4 femmes en ce moment qui ont à peu près 60 ans, mais qui ont honte de parler de leur partie intime. Et que la semaine prochaine, je vais rencontrer un autre groupe parce que ces femmes-là n'arrivent pas à parler de l'excision, n'arrivent pas à être ouvertes sur ces questions-là parce qu'elles ont vraiment honte de parler de leur partie intime et honte de parler devant les autres de tout ça. Alors, il y a une dame qui me disait que les problèmes que j'ai dans mon couple liés à l'excision, mais je n'ose pas en parler. Je souffre à l'intérieur, je souffre silencieusement et mon mari n'essaye pas de comprendre. Et ces mots qu'il lance tous les jours, qui sont des mots très très durs, donc elle subit les violences verbales dans sa maison, dans son lit, et elle n'arrive pas à ouvrir la bouche pour dire à son mari le mal qu'elle a, la chose qu'elle ne veut pas en parler. Et pour dire aussi que les violences en général ont beaucoup augmenté en ce moment et toutes ces violences, l'excision, je pense que dans certains endroits, on n'en parle pas, mais a véritablement augmenté avec la crise parce qu'il n'y avait plus de travail, il n'y avait plus de contrôle sur eux et qu'on doit vraiment, je ne sais pas comment dire, impliquer les acteurs traditionnels, toutes sortes d'acteurs traditionnels, comment on dit partout, parce qu'on continue au nom de la tradition, au nom des coutumes, au nom de la religion, surtout en ce moment, de faire énormément de mal sur le sexe de la petite fille, soi-disant qu'elle deviendra femme tant qu'on ne l'aura pas mutilée, qu'elle deviendra femme tant qu'on ne l'aura pas, je sais pas moi, manipulée mentalement, manipulée physiquement, avec des souffrances énormes. Ces jeunes filles qui sont dans ces sociétés secrètes, on a vu dans ce film tous ces protocoles, mais on peut faire tellement de protocoles sans toucher à la sexualité de la fille. Mais je pense qu'aussi il y a une chose qu'on n'a peut-être pas oubliée, c'est parce qu'on ne l'a pas mis en avant, c'est les hommes. On a besoin de mettre que les hommes s'impliquent de plus en plus, mais que nos politiques puissent avoir je ne vais pas être grossier, mais puissent avoir le culot d'appliquer ces lois. Parce que ces lois, c'est aussi la protection de ces filles. C'est la protection de ces femmes. Ces lois, c'est aussi aider les autorités à pouvoir s'imposer et se dire que ces femmes aussi, ces filles sont aussi des citoyennes et sont aussi des personnes, mais on ne les utilise pas seulement quand il y a des élections en leur donnant des t-shirts et 2000 francs, en leur donnant un pagne. Il faut un vrai travail de changement de mentalité. Un vrai travail de changement de mentalité. Et là, je pense qu'il faut revenir à la base. Parce que tout ce qui est politique, on l'a obtenu. Mais il faut revenir à la base. Il faut vraiment revenir à la base. Je vais m'arrêter là parce que je sais qu'il y a beaucoup de monde qui parle et si je continue, je ne vais pas finir. Je remercie encore tout le monde, et dis merci à Emma pour son intervention et qu'elle nous manque, qu'on espère que nos pistes va reprendre le flambeau pour travailler continuer à travailler l'excision, mais sur les mariages précoces et forcés. On appelle des mariages d'enfants, mais qui font des ravages dans les familles en ce moment. Merci beaucoup et bonne continuation à tous.
Gianfranco, you're muted.
I wanted to say, as I said, Thank you, Kadi, once again for your presence, your involvement, your enthusiasm in this fight. And we as No Peace, we are really very well involved in also in the fight against forced marriage. I give the pleasure now to give the floor to Chiara Damo, Acting Director of the program Human Rights, Equality and Democracy of the European Commission, in which the Spotlight Initiative is entrusted. Please, Chiara.
Thank you, Gianfranco. Thanks to No Peace Without Justice. And first of all, I really would like to commend our previous speakers for their very strong testimony, and also the movie, which I find excellent. It goes at the center of the issue. It shows, unfortunately, that despite some progress in recent years globally, FGM is still worrisome, and as the previous speaker also mentioned, the consequence of the COVID crisis didn't make progress even easier. We have more than 200 million girls and women suffering from FGM across the world, and in Europe we are not exempt. I think it's important to recall it. We have at least 600,000 women living with the consequence of FGM, and a further 180,000 girls and women at risks of harmful practice, even also in Europe. So from the side of the European Union, of course, this is a key priority. We want and we are standing up for women and girls' human rights, and it's important to speak out against FGM, as the ambassador to Liberia just mentioned. Words also translate in key political and diplomatic démarches. So it is important that we really make pressure both at the global level but also at the country level, as he is doing. Alongside these political and advocacy efforts, indeed, the European Union has been supporting a number of programs for the elimination of harmful practices and FGM. And as everybody else had mentioned, this can only be effective if they engage everyone, the communities, and they really look into transforming social norms through collective action. So since 2016, I would say that the European Union flagship program in this area is a program with UNFPA UNICEF, the joint program on the elimination of FGM. And this is now currently supported through the EU UN Spotlight Africa Regional Program initiative. The ambassador also mentioned that the UN Spotlight initiative is also having country programs for the elimination of all forms of violence against women and girls. And this is in countries including Liberia, Uganda, or Mali. So it operates in 26 countries, 6 different regions, and it takes an approach which is a whole of society approach. Why? Because, as you said it all, first we need to engage at the highest level of the government. We need to be able to elevate the issue of violence against women and girls, as well as the issue of FGM, by engaging with the governments and institutions. In Liberia, this is what is taking place, including engagement with the president himself. Second, we need to improve the capacity of the institutions to civil servants, practitioners, but also education, health services, everyone to really build their capacity, be trained to make a difference. And third, you all said it, and we are seeing it in the announcement coming tomorrow, we need to engage and continue to engage with traditional leaders, as they play, of course, a key role in ending these practices. And we need to promote a community mobilization to really change the attitudes, the behaviors, and the raising awareness, and making sure that also the knowledge of services and laws is increased. For this, I wanted to say that FGM, of course, is also due to culture, but not only. It's also due to economic gains. I think one of you said it. And this is why in Liberia, for instance, we launched through Spotlight the Alternative Economic Livelihood Program, which teaches new skills to traditional practitioners who operate bush schools and provide alternative source for funding. The role of media and journalists cannot also be underlined more. And finally, engaging with you, civil society, feminist advocates, women human rights defenders. And on that, I'd want to mention the African Union Commission and the African Union Envoy launched the Salima Youth Victorious Ambassadors Program, which really is leading a communication campaign which put young women and FGM survivors from 18 to 35 at the center to give them a voice and really generate this intergenerational leadership dialogue to make sure that that there is a real change in societies. So I'm just humbled by this discussion. You have the solution. We are there to support you in putting forward these solutions. Nothing can really justify these violations of women and girls' rights. So I believe that change is and must be possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chiara. It's a global problem, as you have mentioned, and we are very happy to hear from you that on the detail of the program that you have you lead, and I hope that that will be possible for many activists and NGOs and civil society to participate, to contribute. You have mentioned this initiative of the African Union. All those things that can move are certainly to take, and from our side, from No Peace Without Justice, of course, we are very ready to be part of this effort. I have now the intervention on a global spectrum of Mrs. Anne-Marie Wilson, founder and executive director of 28 Too Many NGOs, and maybe she can give us more detail on her activity, her role, and the role of its organization. Please, Anne-Marie.
Thank you very much. I will just interrupt to make sure I can share the screen correctly with your presentation. Okay, so if you can't see it, just tell me and we can talk to our technician. Right, thank you.
Thank you very much, honoured guests. It is a great privilege to be here today with so many of you. And I'm delighted to share a little bit about the context of FGM in Europe. However, just before I go into that, I just want to speak briefly on a more global context. As we know, the FGM is practiced globally to over 200 million girls. And we know that there are 3 million girls at risk annually. And we have vast majority of African and most of a vast majority are also affected in the EU as well. This actually affects every country except Antarctica. And we know that with cross-border movement, actually it's a very wide practice. We also know that the age of cutting is different. In countries like Liberia and Sierra Leone, we've already heard it's more at a sort of puberty area. In other countries, it's at small children. And it's really about a sense of belonging, being and becoming a woman. But in terms of under the time of COVID, we've had huge problems and programs have slipped backwards. So we want to actually ask people listening today to make sure that programs are not compromised in favour of other health programs because of the pandemic, and we need to get the money back to anti-FGM initiatives. Just to put the context for this film screening, which has been very moving, before I speak about the context in Europe. In Liberia, it's the first survey that's been done in 2019-20, and on our website, 28toomany.org, We have reports on all of these countries you can see up here and all across the 28 countries in Africa. We also have done work on model law and on the law in every country in Africa as well. And actually that's what helped Sudan to change its law, and also Somalia and Somaliland. So we'd love the same to be true for Liberia and Sierra Leone. In Liberia, the prevalence is over 38% of nationally across the country, yet it's 54 to 68% in the north and west central areas, which are more rural, and it's done by the Zoe, who runs the Bush School. And one quote from May Azango, a Liberian journalist, says, if a child, your mother and grandmother are telling you you need to be cut, you don't know better, and that's why we're here today. It happens more in the rural areas than urban, 59% Muslim, 35% Christian. In Sierra Leone, it's 83% of 15 to 49-year-olds, and it's the close link with the Bondo Society, very like the Sande in Liberia, and 57% believe it should continue. And Anu Ata Koromu, Secretary of the Forum Against Harmful Traditional Practices in Sierra Leone, said, we want the government to clearly ban this. There's no place in Sierra Leone for this in the 21st century. So just to set it in context, Liberia and Sierra Leone, Mali, Somalia and Chad all have needs to pass laws which makes actually FGM legal in those countries. So why would you think a charity like ours, 28 Too Many, where all our reports are freely downloadable, so do have a look. You just need to go 28toomany.org and resources, or each countries you want to look at, and see why would we get involved in the EU. Well, of course, it actually is also in the diaspora. It's from where people come and still carry on their practice. So we worked with a group of lawyers from Ashurst and reviewed the legislation of 32 countries, and we've done an overarching report and 32 separate reports which you can find, which we have launched this early this year. So this has resulted in publications of a report like this, as you can see, and as I've just mentioned, there is a law report on each of the African countries, the model law report, and then this is our completion of our set of law for the moment. Just to put it in context, we've been hearing about all sorts of different countries as well, and what you can see here is the countries that have actually not got laws. You can see Sierra Leone and Liberia over in the west, Mali a little bit further, and you can see that very high prevalences. Sudan has now passed a law on result of using this law work, but Chad and Somalia still haven't completely done that as well. So Sudan passed it in the summer, but we are proud of that fact because we have contributed to helping that law end, and also worked in Somalia and Somaliland to help change the law there. What are the features of best law practice? This is what we want advocates, any of you who are in advocacy and the EU, to put pressure on to actually talk to the Liberian government and the Sierra Leone government to put in place this best law. One that has a clear definition of FGM, one that criminalises the performance of FGM, and also the procurement, arranging and assisting in acts of FGM. That means taking a child or assisting with travel. One that criminalises the failure to report incidents in FGM. That's been very useful in the UK now. That would be for teachers and health professionals, for social workers, lawmakers. And also the participation of medical professionals in the acts of FGM, which also means medical practices are used for the wrong purposes and medical materials for the wrong purposes, which actually doesn't actually change the long-term implications of FGM, although it's often done in a more hygienic setting. We also need the criminalisation of the practice of cross-border FGM, because you can see the proximity of Sierra Leone and Liberia, and also to Mali, and practices spread across one country to the next if you don't eradicate in all the different places. So let's have a look now at details of the law in FGM as well. The obvious answer is it happens here, and you'll see the map on this next slide now. Our research highlights 600,000 women and girls living in the European Union who have experienced FGM. 600,000. A further 130,000 living in the EU are at risk of FGM, and 45% of those women and girls live in France and the UK, and most of them across all these areas are of African descent. You can see from the colour coding on this the high prevalence in the UK and France, the highest ones there, and then the mid-range for Sweden, Germany, Netherlands, Spain, Italy, etc. And then the lower prevalence, mostly because we don't have enough data over on the former Eastern European bloc. Let's have a look now at our key findings. So we had these 4 international treaties, the ICCPR adopted in '96, the ICESCR entered into force in the early 70s, CEDAW, which we all live and work under, and the Convention on the Rights of the Child as well. We need to put pressure on those being adhered to in each country. And also at regional level, the Convention of the Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms, and the Council of European Convention on Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence. So I would suggest that when you're looking to adopt a new law, that you mention those as well. And when you're working with these different countries, you quote these laws to make sure that they are, then these treaties to make sure they're upheld. And most recently, of course, we have the Istanbul Convention. Only 25 of the 32 countries have actually ratified the Istanbul Convention. And for those of you that lobby at an EU or a UN level, these are things that are important to be adopted. So even the UK and others, you can see from these dark, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, Latvia, Lithuania have not actually signed and ratified this Istanbul Convention. Let's have a look now at the national legislation. As you can see here, all 32 countries in the study have criminalised FGM, which is a step forward for women and girls of all ages, either explicitly or implicitly through different types of legal instruments. 3 countries have specific FGM, Ireland, Sweden and the UK. 13 have specific FGM provisions in their criminal codes, but half the countries have no specific FGM legislation or provision, yet FGM is considered illegal under general assault provisions. I would suggest that isn't actually adequate for the sort of prosecutions we need to in order to make progress in this area. Now, looking further at the details of the definition of FGM, in 19 countries, some form of definition of FGM is included in legal provision. Again, you can see the ones that aren't: Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Greece, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary. But actually that is something, again, we would like to put pressure on our EU colleagues to take that forward and try and get it across EU mandate for defining these things. And similarly for procuring, aiding and abetting girls for FGM, you can see procuring is only criminalised if performed abroad or a person who is not a British national resident in the UK, which is why we come up, speaking from the UK today, we come up as a red on that one. And other countries have got different levels as well. So in terms of this map here, not all countries require any person who is aware of the commission of FGM to actually report it to the competent authorities. And that means that in 31 countries, procuring and abetting is still included, but not actually criminalised. And actually, in the obligation to report, we don't have teachers, social workers and the like actually taking up the responsibilities. This is important in terms of medicalisation as well. So looking at this slide here, 18 of the 32 study countries have no specific provisions against medicalisation of FGM or malpractice by licensed professionals. And interestingly, there have been a number of failed prosecutions in the UK that included medicalised personnel as well. This is against the Hippocratic Oath in the UK, and it is against good use of materials and national budgets for health provision across these different countries. 31 of the 32 study countries extend extraterritorial application in their criminal laws to the performance of FGM abroad in at least certain cases. And it's more than 10 years maximum imprisonment for FGM or related offences prescribed by the majority of the 32 cases. But again, you will see in the more detailed reports, these are extracts from it, of exactly how each country fares, and there's room for improvement in all 32. Now let's have a quick look at case law. There have been 70 cases across Europe since 1983, the first of which was in France, and most actually do come from France and Spain. The first French case confirmed that FGM is criminalised in France under general legislation rather than FGM law. And almost all, which is 16 out of the 18 Spanish cases, were acquitted. There's been a recent series of first-time cases for Switzerland, UK, Ireland, Italy and Portugal between 2018 and 2021. So things are increasing, but we need to have robust law in order to be able to prosecute properly as well. And again, it's important to think about extraterritoriality, that people can move across borders and continue to do so to avoid legislation in one country in favour of softer legislation somewhere else. So finally, turning to the overarching recommendations that arise from our research, in all the 8 countries there are 8 primary recommendations. Each have been implemented by some countries, but no country has all of them. So firstly, we recommend all countries without prevalence data conduct research to estimate the number of women and girls impacted by FGM. This will include provision, therefore, for psychological support long term. We urge all countries to ratify the Istanbul Convention. We also recommend that countries without specific FGM legislation confirm the application of general criminal to FGM, so that there are no loopholes that can be escaped when things actually get as far as court. We recommend countries align the definition of FGM maintained in their laws with that of the WHO. There are 4 main types there, and it keeps it easier for legislation across one area like the EU, like Europe, that if we all have the same definitions, and we give definitions in the model law and each of these countries as well. We recommend that countries specifically criminalise the procuring, aiding and abetting of FGM, and that will also help with border forces as well, with airports and ports of entry. We also recommend that relevant professionals and institutions be obligated to report FGM. This would include teachers, social workers, doctors, and such the like, and neighbours. And while protecting families, we need to actually make sure people realise this is a form of abuse and needs to be protected in law. We recommend countries extend their extraterritorial application to their national criminal laws to performance of FGM, always regardless of double criminality, so that is covered in 2 areas to make sure there's a joined up form in the law. We recommend that countries in state assistant to effectively protect uncut girls and women as well. So that's our 8 of 8 recommendations. We would love you to share those on Twitter, and as we celebrate Day of Zero Tolerance, to just get these information out there. All our reports are on our website, and we'd be delighted to take any questions later. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. And the presentation has been, someone has asked to circulate the presentation later on to the participant. I think we can certainly accept and giving later on, distribute later on your figures that are very interesting and very important. Now we come to the political side and final side of the event, the intervention of our 3 representative members of the European Parliament, particularly involved in the fight against the FGM. The first one, and the pleasure to give the floor to Pierrette Zerben Fofana, member of the European Parliament for the Green Group. Please, Pierrette, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. I am very, very happy that I've been invited by you because I know Mrs. Emma Bonino. The first time she invited me, it was 2000 here at the Parliament, but that way, it was, at that time, I was a representative of the African AFAD and EWAD, Association des femmes africaines pour la recherche et le développement, Association of African Women for Research and Development, and I was the president of Forward Germany. Forward Germany is an association who has been launched 1998 in Germany, and I was until I came to the Parliament 2012. At that time, we were supporting some countries in Africa, Mali, and Senegal. And I agree with everything you said, and maybe I just want to say something about what the ambassador says, first of all. And there's a quotation of Amadou Hampâté-Bâ. Amadou Hampâté-Bâ is a writer, is a philosopher too, and he said, there are practices that our ancestors themselves, if they came back to life, would find obsolete and outdated. And so I gave always that quotation that the first time I used it, it was 1999 on my report about FGM. But I want to focus on FGM now in Germany, because we have, and Germany is first of all the last country in Europe who had a law. The law was passed 2013, and it was on we were the Green who pushed it for that. And because in our association in Forward Germany, we had an MEP from the Bundestag, and it was possible so to push it until we had the law. What is the situation in Germany? In Germany, we had a big community, black community, who are coming from everywhere, from all over the world, we can say, but not from Africa, from Liberia, Sierra Leone, but also from Afghanistan and from Iraq. Yes, it's a big community, and those girls and women are mutilated. Of course, I think is nearly 30,000, but I am not sure of the 30,000, that the new one, but I have to check it, but sure, there are 4,000 girls under 18 who has been already mutilated, and we try now to make, with the government, we have launched something. We said that the letter of protection, yes, the letter of protection was last year published by the German government, in with organization Lesson, and Lesson, I am the patron of that organization, and that organization is in Germany. It is an official document of the German government and a strong signal to community that practice female genital mutilation in Germany. The letter was, as I said, last year on the 4th of February here at the Parliament. We have shown it, and the Ministry of the Family Minister spoke about. What is the aim of this letter? The aim of this letter is to break the taboo through awareness and prevention. Therefore, if it is necessary to raise awareness in the communities that practice female genital mutilation in Germany without stigmatizing or discriminating against them, but by protecting their daughters. The letter can be found on the website of the Ministry for Family and can be downloaded and ordered from the website, and is translated into English, French, Arabic, African languages, some African languages, and Asian languages. And it is my aim that maybe we can try to use that letter of protection in all Europe countries, because it informs about the legal consequences for anyone who performs FGM on a girl or woman while traveling in the country of the parents. They will be punished upon their return to Germany with up 15 years of imprisonment and the loss of their residence permit. The same applies to forced marriage of girls and boys under the age of 15. This letter of protection has the advantage for the family of migrants that they can escape from the control of their families when they return to their homeland or send their daughters on vacation and holidays. Third-party pressure is a subtle form of psychological violence. Indeed, many migrants have expressed their concern and inability to refuse to have their daughters cut when they face with their family back home. Mockery, fear of the curse, or exclusion from the community of origin encourage them to accept an excision that they generally do not approve of, aware of the harmful consequences that such an operation could have on their daughter's health. Threat, coercion, and fear of common forms of psychological violence to achieve specific objectives such as cutting a girl. In this sense, the letter of protection comes at the right time and serves as a shield and defense because the parent can now freely refuse to have their daughter excised without incurring the wrath of their community or their extended family, who certainly do not want them to be imprisoned when they go back to Germany, which also means for them the loss of financial support they generally receive from migrants because they would have let their daughter be excised while in the country. I would seem that it seems that the letter of protection could be used, as I said, in the European countries, maybe as an experience. We make it in Germany and we had a good experience, we have to say. Yes. Of course, when you listen, when you hear that, you think it's very terrible, but we try many, many things. We make prevention, explanation, plaidoyer, and so on, explain what happened, but it was not so successful, I have to say it. The European Union, finally, support organizations like a lesson with this project. Men commit themselves to gender equality, of which I said I have a patron, and this association, like so many others in the field in Germany, contributes to the protection of the physical integrity of women and girls in a culturally sensitive way, so that we can achieve the abolition of the female genital mutilation and forced marriage. That's also a big problem in Germany with the migrant community. However, we would like to recall that we are not fighting against traditions, but for the abolition of acts of violence that affect the health of women and girls. That is why the Istanbul Convention of the Council of Europe is an important treaty. It condemns violence against women as a serious violation of human rights. Domestic violence is widespread throughout Europe, even though many people still want to turn a blind eye to it. 33 European countries have already ratified the convention. However, 6 others in Europe that are part of the European Union have not yet ratified the Istanbul Convention. We still have a lot of work to do in terms of implementation of this treaty by all member states. On February 11, 2020, I was the rapporteur for our party for the resolution in the European Parliament to develop a European Union strategy to end mutilation on a European scale. This resolution was adopted by a large majority. The resolution recognizes, for example, that genital mutilation is a gross and systematic violation of human rights, a form of violence against women and girls, and an expression of gender inequality that is not linked to any particular religion or culture. FGM is, as everybody knows, is recognized in Europe as a universal problem that affects at least 200 million women and 70,000 is it in Germany. I have it. It's really 70,000. And the resolution also points out that Article 38 of the Istanbul Convention requires member states to penalize anyone who induces, causes, or recruits a girl to undergo genital mutilation. I just want to say something more. I wanted to make an intergroup, yes, and I had some contact with Mrs. My colleague, Francis Fitzgerald, and other MEP, but you know what happened with COVID, and with the COVID also yeah, also COVID okay, my English is something. With the COVID, it was not possible, but it is my aim that we had an intergroup here from parliamentary, and I know in all the political party, there is at least one woman who was very, very interested, and I think if we had the intergroup, I'm going to revive that that idea, because if you have an intergroup on parliamentary, and we said we want to help, we want to support Liberia, because what I have heard before, I heard it by 2000 when I came here at the parliament for the first time, as I said, and I was very, very shocked. And I thought that it was better now. And and I think I am going to contact the other colleague, and so that we can make on the parliamentary level, and I am sure we are, of course, we are not going to abolish some things that's so a long time, but I'm sure we can at least support the civil organization on all those ladies who had the courage to speak before. And I must say thank you for what they said, and thank you for courage, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Perrette, and thank you for also this announcement. I think effectively that an intergroup would be a great support to all this campaign, all this engagement that you have seen until now. Now, it's my pleasure to give the floor to Alessandra Moretti, member of the European Parliament for the Socialist and Democrat group. Please.
Thank you, Gianfranco. I'm delighted to be here today to this event to present the impressive documentary of Emanuela Tucalà on the much important and urgent topic of the female genital mutilation in Liberia. I feel that being here, presenting this work and talking about this huge matter is extremely important and also imperative from my part as a European deputy, because too often there is a spread conviction that the problem of female genital mutilation doesn't affect European countries, that it's a reality far from us, concerningly mostly Africa. On the contrary, we have data that estimates that in Europe, almost 600,000 women and girls, part of indigenous and diaspora communities, have to live with the consequence of this practice, and that a further 190,000 girls and women are at risk or of undergoing the practice in 17 European countries. Moreover, UNHCR estimates that every year for the past 5 years, at least 20,000 women and girls asylum seekers coming to Europe might be affected by FGM. Female genital mutilation refers to all procedures that involve partial or total removal of the external female genitalia for non-medical reasons. That practice has no health benefit for girls and women. On the contrary, it causes major problems and unbearable pain. more than 200 million girls and women alive today have undergone FGM in 30 countries in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. The practice is mostly carried out on young girls between infancy and the age of 15. FGM is recognized in international treaties as a violation of human rights of girls and women. It reflects deep-rooted inequality between the sexes and constitutes an extreme form of discrimination against women. Moreover, the fact that it's nearly always carried out on minors represents a violation of the rights of children. The practice also violates a person's right to health, security, and physical integrity, the right to be free from torture and cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment, and the right to life in instances when the procedure causes death. The importance of eliminating FGM is also recognized among the UN and Sustainable Development Goals within Goal 5, which is dedicated to achieving gender equality by 2030. But the battle against this FGM is long and complicated, and it cannot be won only through laws. In fact, more than half of the countries where FGM is practiced already has national laws that forbid it. Very often, women themselves ask to be undergone the practice. They ask for it when they are becoming adults, because genital mutilation is seen as a necessary ritual closely related with maturity, purity, aesthetic. So this problem is a cultural one, and it's very rooted in society. This is why the action to eradicate it must start from education, from schools. The European action must be very practical. It has to measure the prevalence of the practice in each country in order to design projects of awareness, acknowledgement, and learning specifically focused and target for each community. Moreover, to make this plan as effective as possible, the European Parliament and the European Commission have to take actions well thought and planned in a global way concerning all 27 member states, which must act as a whole and not individually with different plans. The European institutions have a big potential to contribute to the eradication of this retrograde custom, and they must not waste it. They have to invest in well-thought projects, which must be global and targets to every single cultural situation in order to better reach the needs of every community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alessandra. Thank you to you very much for this intervention, and we had person and people involved in this campaign. Now it's my pleasure to give the floor to Mrs. Frances Fitzgerald, member of the European Parliament from the EPP group. Please.
Thank you, and hello everyone. I'm conscious of the time, and I'm delighted to have been invited by you to make a presentation this morning and really to show my support for what you're doing. And great congratulations, Gianfranco, for the initiative and the No Peace Without Justice. I think it's great to see everybody involved, and the more we can work together, the more we can get meaningful action on FGM across Europe and indeed across the world. I'm delighted to be with my two colleagues here from the European Parliament as well. And of course, we should do everything we can to have an interest group here in the Parliament as well, which could be very effective. Let me just make a few key points. First of all, I think we need to get better and better data of the levels of FGM, both in Europe and outside of Europe. And that's going to take resources to have the kind of accurate data, very impressive data, I have to say, presented here today, and also very impressive in terms of the kind of laws that we need to have in our member states. I think both of those issues are really important. That's the statistics and having law built into all of the legislation in our member states and in other countries. Secondly, let me make the point that I think it's absolutely imperative that we view FGM as a form of violence against women. We know the issue well, we understand it, but we have to be very blunt to ensure that it's given adequate and due regard as a matter of urgency. So when we speak about FGM, we're speaking about violence against women. And it's for that reason that I'm enthused and encouraged by what we're doing here in the European institutions, in the European Commission. I hope that FGM will be included under the proposed directive tackling violence against women, which we should see in about a month from now. So I think that's an important date to note. We have to see it as part of the continuum of violence against women and treat it that way. And I think this new directive on violence against women, Gianfranco, is a real opportunity to do that. And I think that's what we should be looking for. Of course, legislation is only one part of the issue. We also have to look at education. I think education is key, as we've been discussing today. Education, community involvement, working from the ground up, but also working at leadership level. You need both, in my experience. I also think, as a member of the Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality and the Committee on Development here in the Parliament, I was struck by what the End FGM Network advise in this regard. They're saying that EU can be more strategic and effective in approaching the interactions between the diaspora of external countries living in the EU and considering first and second generation migration. I think that's an area that we can do more and more work with and connect with those communities and make sure there's a lot of interaction with the European institutions. And I think we need to be very flexible on our programming and funding, both external and internal, to make sure that we give the support to those communities to do the kind of education and development work that they would like to do, and they need support for doing that. And the implementation of funds, for example, like the Citizens' Equality Rights and Values Programme and the NDC, that could have a positive impact on this issue if we use it properly. And of course, working on the Spotlight initiative, that's already been spoken about by Anne-Marie. I think it's really important. We want to continue the funding. We want to see it working more and more. We had a super presentation here from those involved in it. And I think that money is being very well spent. In Liberia alone, 16 million will be spent, affecting overall 600,000 people across 5 countries. So a terrific initiative, and we have to give support in doing that. So I think it's essential, and we need the reinstatement of Executive Order 92 and FGM, or preferably its incorporation into the Domestic Violence Act. Without that, I think change can only be limited. And I'm very worried about what I'm hearing about girls in Liberia and the bush schools, and that just shows how much work we have to do right across the world, actually. So I think we have to keep funding those initiatives from the EU. So look, there are a couple of points that I think are relevant from an EU perspective. Gianfranco, I hope that's helpful. And again, well done to everybody for all of the work that's been done. In my work in equality over the years, I've really seen greater understanding emerging over the last 20, 30 years. And it needs to emerge, but I do see great changes and understanding and, you know, more legislation and more funding. And I think we have to be encouraged by that, despite the scale of the problem and the impact of COVID-19 on it as well, which is quite serious, and we don't have time to go into that here today. So again, thank you all, and thanks for the invitation to join you.
Thank you, Francis. It was really a great intervention, the last one, but one of the most important. I think you send a very important message, and if I can conclude saying that you have seen a very impressive movie that, let's say, shake us once again on the need to address this terrible problem of the female genital mutilation. We have seen some testimony, very important, from the people living in the ground and fighting every day. We have seen also we have focused on two important tools that I think one is the Spotlight Initiative, the need to go further, to involve even more and more people, keeping this fight, and also this initiative that I think is most welcome, to launch an intergroup for continuously keep the attention on the issue. Thank you very much for all the participants. We have spent more than 2 hours, and I saw the list of people, everybody was listening these 2 hours. So that was really important for us. And so thank you for the organizer too. And let's see one other time, and let's keep together for this important battle that we want to continue to take in account very seriously. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.